Hello everyone, welcome to Creating Power. I sincerely hope you can enjoy a pleasant reading time. I continue to share with you the book, Dare to be Different and Grow Rich, Secrets of Self-Made People. The research data in the book shows that the local preference across different investment markets can result in potential losses ranging from 1.48% to 9.79%. For long-term and substantial investments, this ratio can lead to significant losses. While there is no authoritative research yet to pinpoint the exact reasons for this local preference, some German researchers suggest that national pride might be one factor. They found that when nationalistic sentiments are high, the amount of overseas investments decreases. Local preference is an emotional bias that hinders us from forming wise investment strategies. Zitelman believes that one should not assume that familiar markets are safer markets. We must find more compelling reasons for our investment decisions to avoid emotional misguidance. The fourth cognitive fallacy is relying on past market data as a basis for future investments, also known as investing with a rear-view mirror perspective. What does that mean? When driving, we look straight ahead through the windshield to see the road ahead, and we can only see the road already traveled through the rear-view mirror. For instance, in 1998, Germany's stock market performed exceptionally well, with its stock index surpassing the 5,000-point mark. Germans invested heavily, putting €35.3 billion into stock funds that year, compared to only €1.3 billion 2 years prior. The index continued to rise until it crashed in March 2002. Over the next 2 years, many people started selling, and investors who entered at the peak lost at least 2/3 of their capital. In 2003, the German stock market started to recover and continued rising until 2008. Investors who bought in at the low point in 2002 made at least twice their investment. Economist Robert Shiller observed that strong-performing stock markets, after experiencing 5 years of growth, had a 2/3 chance of declining in the following 5 years, while markets that declined the most in the first 5 years had a 94% chance of rising by 122% in the subsequent 5 years. Such significant variations show that relying on a market's past performance to make buying or selling decisions is dangerous. Yet, most German investors behaved this way during the 2 fluctuations in the German stock market. Psychologists confirm the existence of herd behavior, causing people to hesitate deviating from the majority's opinion. This conformist behavior, driven by the instinct of the crowd, is a typical trait of small-scale stock market investors and a major obstacle to wealth accumulation. The final fallacy is that many people tend to believe they can outperform most of the market when investing. Rainer Zitelman primarily addresses this within the context of the stock market. Data from 2012 showed that 70% of private investors in Germany believed their investment skills were above average. However, their returns did not support this claim. This kind of optimism can easily lead to investors' failure. An example of dice rolling illustrates this. Before rolling the dice, people are willing to bet more, but once the dice are rolled and the outcome is not yet known, they only bet smaller amounts. This experiment demonstrates that people tend to believe they can influence random events before they occur. This phenomenon is referred to as the illusion of control. Due to this illusion, many investors overestimate their chances of creating wealth in the stock market. Zitelman suggests that when buying and selling stocks, 95% of the participants are professional traders who make a living by researching the market and have a sophisticated system. Individual investors, on the other hand, generally cannot overcome such systems, especially in short-term trading. Therefore, Zitelman advises adopting a Ulysses strategy to escape the illusion of control in stock market investments. In Greek mythology, Ulysses encountered a siren, a seductive creature that lured sailors to their doom with its enchanting song. To resist temptation, Ulysses had himself tied to the ship's mast so he wouldn't be able to act upon the allure of the song. Zitelman uses this analogy to recommend setting an investment plan that automatically invests a fixed amount of funds each month, whether the market is up or down, thus safeguarding against market risks. With that said, let's review the second key point, the 5 fallacies to avoid when striving for wealth accumulation. The first is to minimize diversification and focus on concentrated investments in markets that you thoroughly understand and can make accurate predictions about. The second is to not assume that low volatility investments are inherently lower risk. The third is to overcome the bias of local preference and invest with a broader perspective. The fourth is to avoid the rearview mirror perspective when making investment decisions and not rely solely on past data for future investments. The fifth is to avoid overestimating one's investment skills in the stock market and to steer clear of the illusion of control. Lastly, let's introduce the third key point, the 5 traits necessary to create wealth. The first trait is having an entrepreneurial spirit. A joint survey by a Swiss bank and PricewaterhouseCoopers in 2015 revealed that most billionaires around the world did not inherit their wealth. Instead, they acquired it through entrepreneurial spirit, investments, and entrepreneurship. So, what is entrepreneurial spirit? According to Zitelman, one of the most important aspects is having an open mind. A survey showed that while the average person associates trying new experiences with risk, over 60% of German entrepreneurs are willing to try various new experiences. Entrepreneurs perceive that not trying anything new is the real risk, as it means missing opportunities. American psychologist Albert Bandura introduced the concept of self-efficacy, which refers to people's confidence in their ability to handle challenging situations. Research by German scholars Laufer and Freitag suggests that successful entrepreneurs generally have higher self-efficacy than others. The second trait is prudent entrepreneurship. Many people tend to equate risk-taking with gambling, which is a cognitive fallacy. As mentioned earlier, successful entrepreneurs take calculated risks, which involve careful strategic thinking and methods to mitigate risks. According to Zitelman's life cycle research spanning 60 years, achieving a high score in conscientiousness is one of the conditions for entrepreneurial success. Other suggestions for aspiring entrepreneurs include allowing for a transition period, not neglecting current positions during this phase, as those who fail to handle their existing jobs well are more likely to fail in entrepreneurship. Another consideration is the amount of capital required for entrepreneurship, which often turns out to be much higher than expected. Unexpected challenges are common during entrepreneurship, so a rigidly set business plan is bound to fail sooner or later. The third trait is honesty. People often think that the wealthy became rich through dishonest means while they remain financially constrained due to their honesty. This perception stems from a misunderstanding. Many believe that business activities are a zero-sum game, where one person's gain results in another's loss. Zitelman argues that stable business relationships should involve mutually beneficial transactions. Warren Buffett once bought a furniture store and asked the owner how much the store was worth. The owner replied, $40 million. The next day, Buffett sent over a check without any audit. This surprised the store owner, but Buffett said he trusted him even more than his own accountants. For Buffett, the store was worth exactly that amount, with no frills. Buffett has also emphasized 3 qualities he looks for when hiring: honesty, intelligence, and experience, with honesty being the most important. If employees aren't honest, their intelligence and experience could potentially harm the company. The fourth trait is frugality. People often believe that the wealthy enjoy extravagant lives, but data from surveys conducted in the US and Germany suggest that most wealthy individuals do not indulge in conspicuous consumption. They are accustomed to having worn shoes repaired and may switch telecom service providers due to high long-distance charges. This is because successful individuals prioritize the appreciation of assets over consumption. The final trait is setting financial goals. Setting a goal of earning $1 million is unrealistic, you say. If you think so, you've already failed on the path to wealth creation. Research indicates that the higher the goals set for a business, the higher its subsequent achievements. Therefore, the first step toward financial freedom is knowing exactly what you want to achieve and why. Zitelman recommends writing down your financial goals for the next 10 years. He believes people tend to overestimate what they can accomplish in a year but underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. Studies, such as those by American scholars Collins et al. In 2008, show that many great achievements are accomplished over a span of 10 years. Thus, 10 years is an appropriate timeframe for achieving financial goals. After setting a 10-year goal, break it down into smaller goals to accomplish each year. If your 10-year goal is to earn $1 million, you probably won't earn $100,000 each year consistently. Income may be lower for a period and then exponentially increase. Therefore, set reasonable goals for each stage based on this pattern. Zitelman believes that current financial situations reflect current mindsets. If we don't change our mindset and continue to believe we can't succeed due to fear of failure, we won't be able to create wealth. With that, we have covered today's 3 key points. To wrap up, the first key point is understanding what wealth is. Equating wealth solely with a large income will never lead to financial freedom. Only by continuously appreciating wealth can we prevent it from being depleted. The second key point is breaking 5 cognitive fallacies to learn how to increase wealth. The first is to minimize diversification and focus on concentrated investments. The second is not to assume that low volatility investments are always lower risk. The third is to overcome the bias of local preference and invest with a broader perspective. The fourth is to avoid investing with a rear-view mirror perspective and not relying solely on past data for future investments. The fifth is to not overestimate one's investment skills in the stock market and to avoid the illusion of control. Lastly, the third key point is the 5 traits necessary for wealth creation. The first is an entrepreneurial spirit. The second is prudent entrepreneurship. The third is honesty. The fourth is frugality. The fifth is the ability to set ambitious financial goals. That concludes today's presentation. If you enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, and share the channel. Thank you, everyone.